Hurricane Katrina is now making its second landfall.
Very strong winds in this northern eye wall.
The water is actually rushing over their seawalls.
With 150-mile-an-hour winds, it just continues to get worse.
It's starting to get a little bit dangerous.
The water kept rising, and it kept rising.
It was surreal. It was like something that you see in the movies.
I knew in my mind it was only a matter of time before that water got into the building.
We got 13 people in this boat. I said, oh, Lord, I don't know where to bring these people to.
There's buildings coming down all around us.
Please call my next of kin and tell them I love them because I know I'm going to die.
As a meteorologist covering the 2005 Atlantic hurricane season, it was both fascinating and terrifying at the same time. We saw a record-breaking amount of hurricanes, major hurricanes, and named tropical storms that year. And of course, Hurricane Katrina proved to be the worst of them all.
I first started watching Katrina when it was approaching Florida as a tropical storm. It became a hurricane right at landfall, so I documented it literally 2 hours from where I live. It was a Category 1 that actually caused a lot of damage and a few deaths. I mean, people didn't take it very serious, I don't think.
Hurricane Katrina kicking up its heels here a little bit this afternoon. It is just hellacious out there as we are dealing with 60 to 70 mile per hour winds.
It didn't matter whether Florida was there or not. Katrina was on its way to becoming a monster, and soon after it emerged, all of a sudden we've got ourselves a hurricane, which just kept on growing. Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5, and also expanding in terms of wind field. This was probably one of the most explosive hurricanes that we've ever seen.
We have hurricane warnings in effect across parts of the Gulf Coast, including New Orleans and all the way over towards Gulf Shores, Alabama. You will be feeling the effects of this storm as well. By 7 a.m., Katrina was a Category 5 hurricane, the worst on the Saffir-Simpson scale, with sustained winds of 175 miles per hour and gusts even higher than that. With a hurricane this large and this powerful, we knew storm surge was going to be significant for the low-lying areas of the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Cities from Waveland and past Christiane on the western side of the state to Gulfport and Biloxi farther to the east, they were all forecast to see a really significant surge.
I'm stationed at Station 2, which is on the east end of Biloxi. It's the easternmost station that the city has. I'm a big hurricane person. I watch the news a lot. I track them a lot. And when I saw it coming across, still not knowing where it was going, but as big as Katrina was, I knew we were going to get something from it.
The place we were at in Biloxi was one story. It was right on the beach. We knew without question that was going underwater, and as a matter of fact, there was probably a pretty good chance that the whole hotel was going to be gone. This gentleman kind of found us from Gulfport, from the Armed Forces Retirement Home, and he said, you know, Jim, we got rooms. You can stay with our vets. And that in its own right was cool. And I remember talking to a couple of those guys, and it's like, you know, hey, Jim, if we went through what we went through, we can go through this hurricane.
I arrived to Gulfport, Mississippi the night before Katrina made landfall. The hotel that I stayed at was right on the beach. I could take a rock from the front door of the hotel and throw it into the Gulf. That's how close we were. I knew I was getting into something that was going to be very uncomfortable and very raw.
Probably about 6 o'clock when the light started shining, the little bit of light that we did have, we noticed that we were completely surrounded on all four sides by water.
On the scene with Dave Williams.
Right now, Katrina's coming ashore.
It looks like we got about probably
50, 60 mile an hour sustained winds.
When the water first started coming up, we were walking around, we were having a good time, trying to make light of, you know, our situation. We were trying to keep the mood in an upbeat spirit just because we knew what was coming.
It's getting rough out here. We've got a good 2 to 3 foot seas in front of the station.
unbeknownst to us, 2 blocks away, whole houses were crumbling under the water.
Good morning, everybody from Gulfport, Mississippi, where it just continues to get worse here.
The morning of my live shots, the wind is blowing, it's raining incredibly hard. I mean, so hard that you really can't even see 10 feet. 8 hours before landfall, we had the first wave of storm surge coming in. Waves rolling in on top of that, just beating up the entire Mississippi coast.
Normally in a hurricane, I can be a little bit more mobile. I'll drive around if it can be done. Surge is coming over the road. But once this storm became as strong as it did, and I knew storm surge was going to be such an issue.
The storm surge is getting pretty intense now. The winds are picking up.
I knew that I wasn't going to be able to be mobile. When the storm surge first came up to the hotel door, I actually went outside one more time because I wanted to get a few more shots because I knew I probably wouldn't be able to get outside anymore.
Storm surge.
Well, just in that little bit of time, the surge came up another 2 or 3 feet. And I got trapped on the outside of the hotel with storm surge coming in and crashing against the door. Problem was, it was one of those doors that locked from the inside, and I couldn't open the door.
Oh yeah, it's coming up now.
Luckily, within a couple minutes, my chase partner, Jim Reed, came over and opened the door, probably saved my life.
We moved closer to the building, did a couple more shots.
All in all, guys, it continues going downhill in a hurry. We'll keep you posted as long as we can.
Went inside to grab a little breakfast. 10 minutes later, we walk out and looked out there. I said, what happened? Do you have a flash flood, a heavy rain event here? No, that's the storm surge. They told me and my producer that, hey, we're at 27 feet. Our first floor is at 27 feet above sea level. I felt good about 27 because the forecast was from 25 to 28 feet of storm surge.
We are in the eye wall of Hurricane Katrina. Winds are starting to shift around a little bit to the northwest. Folks, this is part of the Gulf of Mexico, which has come all the way back up, flooded our parking lot, and as you can see, is now trying to surround the building here with water.
Our crews had their equipment in the car. They went out to try and chase some of that and get whatever they could out of the car, and that was a complete disaster because everything got flooded. So we lost about 4 vehicles and just tons of camera equipment.
It was probably 9 o'clock when the water first started coming in the station. We got a lot of calls from people trying to get help, saying they were stuck in their house, stuck in their attic. Please call my next of kin and tell them I love them because I know I'm going to die. I knew there was nothing that we could do for anybody on that end of town.
We're useless. That's all we are right now, but you can see everything's getting worse. Our parking lot's covered.
There was no way we could get to them. You know, there was 5 foot of water in front of our station. There's no way our trucks would have made it to them. That's a helpless feeling to know that what you're paid to do, you can't do because of this.
It's not just Gulfport and Biloxi, Mississippi that we're worried about. Katrina is a huge storm. Tropical storm force winds extend 400 miles out from the center. Hurricane force winds extend 200 miles away from the center of the storm. So we're worried about the entire eastern Gulf Coast. We know that plenty of residents along the Mississippi Gulf Coast did evacuate, but we also know that some people either chose to stay or couldn't get out of the area. We knew that it was going to be a very dangerous day ahead.
I was principal of St. Stanislaus College in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina came ashore. St. Stanislaus is an all-boy boarding and day school in Bay St. Louis. Stanislaus has been through many, many hurricanes, but never once did we evacuate because we're in such sound structures.
During Hurricane Katrina, I was a patrol officer with the Pass Christian Police Department. Pass Christian is located directly on the Gulf of Mexico, surrounded on 3 sides by water. The Pass Christian Library was built after Hurricane Camille. The glass was double reinforced. It was above flood elevation, so it was a good place for us to sit and ride out the storm.
We actually opened Stanislaus up as a place of refuge, and over 125 people came to the school. We had 50 students, we had about 25 brothers and volunteers, and Angela Trahan and her mom were both employees at the school.
It was my mom's job to make sure that that staff and those students had food.
That's what she did. She was like the mother to all the kids there.
There's no way that my mother was going to abandon what she loved doing, and that was feeding people and making sure that nobody was hungry.
The weather had really picked up. It was really, really bad outside, and the water was coming up pretty dramatically. We had very little, if any, kind of cell service.
You can hear the wind a little bit, it's howling. You can see the rain and stuff, but nothing major is going on also, I think. As I'm walking to the front of the building, I'm seeing the water has already came across the street. The water is already at the building, and then it started bubbling up through the floor, through the grates in the floor, pushed the doors in. And at that moment, I knew it was real, and that's when I started running around to get everybody up.
Get up, we gotta get out of here. The moment I opened my eyes, I was already soaked.
My thought was to get us to the back door, to go up the stairs to the brothers. But I can't do that because the water is pushing the door from the outside. I was at my wit's end, and I was like, I need help, and I actually started crying at the door. I didn't know what else to do, how to get out.
The storm was still offshore, and we haven't even began to see the full force of this thing yet. The wind was blowing the trees. They were bending pretty hard. The rain was coming in sideways, and it was nothing I had ever seen before in any hurricane I'd ever been through. When the water did crest and began flowing down the road on the side of the library, it looked like, you know, whitewater rapids that you would see like in the Colorado River, you know. The water was moving at speeds I couldn't even imagine.
Come over here and look at it on the side of the library. You've got to be kidding me. That's the Gulf of Mexico.
The water began to come into the library doors. It began splashing up against the doors. We decided at that point there was a stack of newspapers to try to block the water from coming into the building, so we began stacking the newspaper up against the doorway, and we continued to watch it just get deeper and deeper outside of those glass doors.
Oh yeah, that is getting very deep.
Large waves would come in, they'd splash against the building, some of them taller than I am, and you knew at that point if you had to go out there in that survival was going to be very limited.
The water kept rising, and it kept rising. So by this time, we're about waist deep in water and equipment, you know, big steam tables and mixers. And we were all crying and didn't know what to do. My mom grabbed her cell phone and she called her boss.
So miraculously, the phone rings, and it's the ladies in the cafeteria saying that they are standing on top of tables and appliances because the cafeteria is now, the water has now reached the second floor level and the building is going under. They need to be rescued. How that signal came through during the storm, the height of the storm, was pretty unbelievable.
Whoa, that was a big wave that just came through here.
I knew in my mind it was only a matter of time before that water got into the building where we were at. The cars that we had parked in the parking lot began to float.
That is Sergeant Michael Lowley's patrol car, brand new, less than 9,000 miles.
As the cars are floating around in the parking lot, one patrol vehicle in particular got pushed up against the glass doors and broke the glass doors. So we immediately went from no water in the library to 4 feet in a matter of seconds. Chief looked at me and he said, call Harrison County Sheriff's Office on the radio and tell them we need help. We need to be rescued. The response from the dispatcher was, we cannot get to you. It's impossible. All the roads are flooded. We cannot risk manpower to come and save you guys. So at that point, we knew we were on our own. The thought did go through my mind that this could be it. Now, I'm possibly going to drown.
Katrina's storm surge will peak at 28.5 feet at Pass Christian, Mississippi. That is a record, and we are very worried about devastating storm surge all along the coast, even for Waveland, which is 10 miles to the west.
Waveland is a small town. It's, a coast town, very close to the beach. We all look out for each other and help each other out.
It's a little country town. We do a lot of fishing, shrimping, oystering. Everybody knows everybody.
We packed up one night of clothes and we trailed to the hotel where we, figured it would be a little bit safer. We luckily had a second floor room. There was 8 of us in the hotel room and 2 dogs.
Kept on telling the kids and all, I'm sure y'all want to stay for this storm? I said, this storm's going to be pretty big. They said, no, Daddy, we'll stay. I said, all right, this is it.
We've always stayed for them, so there wasn't anything that I was concerned about. And being a teenager at the time, I wasn't scared of anything. We made a decision to stay at my brother's house, which was a brick home. We brought my boat to the residence. It was a 17-foot Gulf line skiff. It was probably the smartest decision we made.
We hear this loud bang on the window. So I jump up, the dog starts barking, and as I open the door of the hotel room, there's about 6 feet of water outside. It was like looking at the ocean instantly. So I just started screaming for everyone to wake up, wake up. The hurricane's here.
Y'all okay?
The first thing I did was grab my video camera. I thought to myself, if I survive this, I have to have proof. No one is gonna believe what's going on right now in Waveland, Mississippi. The rain was pouring down, the wind was whipping, there was waves and white caps crashing over cars, crashing into boats. There was car alarms going off everywhere. 18-wheelers were tipped over.
The 18-wheelers.
It was really the only time in my life I ever thought that I was gonna die.
At the time of the storm, my dad was with me, my brother, my mother, and a longtime friend of my dad. We noticed the water started coming into the yard. 5 minutes later, it was up to the doorstep.
I went ahead and I opened up the door. When I opened up the door, that was the worst mistake I think I did because it just started flooding on in. I started walking out towards the boat. Little Howard got behind me and I asked him, I said, where are you going? He said, I'm following you, Daddy. I said, all right, get up in that boat then.
We got everybody in the boat, and my dad got in last, and he said, all right, drive us out of here.
By the time we left out of that house, it was over the top of the door.
I just prayed to survive this and for the water to stop coming up. And here we are with my grandfather that has Alzheimer's. My 70-year-old grandmother, I'm thinking, How are we gonna get them out of this? We knew that we had to stay together. Family is everything, you know? We couldn't leave. It was, we were all going down or none of us were going down.
While navigating the side streets, we start seeing people screaming, and we see flashlights flashing through the windows of the houses that were passing. When we had those signs, we would go to those houses, and we ended up picking up several people along the way, small children, elderly, a few dogs.
The wind was really, really blowing. I mean, it was probably blowing about 100 at the time or a little bit more. And the water just kept on coming in as we was moving. I said, oh Lord, we got 13 people in this boat. I said, I don't know where to bring these people to.
Hurricane Katrina, still a major hurricane, very strong, dangerous winds out there. Right at the coast, the highest surge is happening right now. I'm on the air, and it's very clear that Katrina is having devastating impacts all along the Gulf Coast, and especially low-lying Mississippi. We're talking about a very vulnerable, susceptible area to storm surge, even with regular hurricanes. But Katrina was such a beast. Yes, it drops to Cat 3 right before landfall, but at this point, storm surge is what's so significant and so powerful, and unfortunately very destructive.
We were in a little area where the pool was. In the pool and the lawn chairs, you know, where all the lawn chairs were, are just floating. The ice machine's floating. The Coke machine is floating. So at that point, we got a big stick and we punched out the skylights, like in the hallway of the hotel, and we were gonna climb on the roof. That was one thought. And then there was a jet ski that got stuck under the stairwell that just kind of floated. So we were trying to get the jet ski back up onto the water, because the jet ski would have been a floating device for several people. At least for my grandparents, you know, we could have sat on top. That was really our only plan to survive.
Make it to Highway 90, and we look left, we look right. I mean, it's at least five foot deep everywhere you see. You know, your whole town's underwater now.
I said, we can go this way, we go to the left, we can go by the police department. Then I got to thinking, I said, well, usually the police chief usually gets a room at this hotel. So we said, well, we'll just make it up to that hotel.
As I'm filming, I look in the distance and I see a boat, but not just a floating boat. I see a boat full of people. So I scream to everyone, y'all, there's a boat, there's a boat. I don't even know how they were standing on that boat. The wind was so bad and the waves were so bad. So we're yelling to the boat to come to the hotel because we could help them. We could tie the boat up and, you know, get the people off safely.
There's people shouting from the second story. They're like, hey, come here, come here. We went to the north side of the hotel, and from there we were offloading people onto the second story balcony.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was surreal. It was like something that you see in the movies. This doesn't happen in my town, in my community. But what I was not shocked to see was people giving back. You know, that's so selfless to put you and your children's lives in danger to save these other people in your community.
We had 150, 140 mile an hour winds. We had 10 sheets from across the street on the building that was slinging across like slingshots at us.
Oh, watch that one.
I had a lot of thoughts of what happens when this water keeps rising. You know, I was responsible for 7 other guys. I can't control fire, but I know how to put fire out. The water was totally different. It overwhelmed us. We had no idea what we were dealing with or how to stay safe. You know, do we turn the power off to the building? Are we gonna get electrocuted if the water comes up? It was 9 foot in our station. I was on top of the fire truck with water to my ankles. You would actually feel the fire truck shake because of the force of the water. And I had a lot of people tell me, why didn't you leave? My question was, where was I gonna go? Knowing that the construction of the station was like it was, 22 foot above sea level, the safest thing was for us to stay there in the station. We were fortunate enough to have our fireboat on a trailer in the station, which had 10 to 15 life jackets. So that was one of the first things we did, was get on the boat, and we made sure everybody in the station had a life jacket on.
All this more storm surge started rolling in the hotel.
Getting ready to break, guys.
And now we have furniture floating and everything.
We got a car that's getting ready to come right in the lobby now.
A car comes crashing through the front door with the lights on because they got shorted. And then the alarms of the hotel started going off, the sirens.
Everything's underwater.
It became very real very fast. And it was at that point that we got into the stairwell and get out of this extremely dangerous situation. There was a few other people in the hotel with us that did not evacuate. Some of the locals, some of the employees of the hotel. We got everybody into the stairwell, and we had mattresses and pillows and on blankets and stuff.
We're completely underwater in this first floor here.
I started off in the stairwell of the lobby, and the surge kept moving me higher and higher. By the end of the hurricane, I was in the 4th floor, looking out a window and watching the surge come through the 2nd floor of the hotel.
We're 4 stories up, and you can see the water surge is dramatically risen here.
There was many senses going on during Hurricane Katrina. First of all, I could feel the hotel shaking. Every wave that would crash into the hotel was like being in a little mini earthquake. The whole hotel would vibrate and shake. You hear like squealing through the windows. You hear glass breaking, you hear trees like creaking and cracking and then crashing down into the water. Sometimes a real loud one will hit and you don't know if it's part of your building maybe even starting to go down, and it's just a non-stop barrage of all these things breaking and crashing, and you just don't know what you're going to hear next. I was definitely worried because at this point we're in a building basically surrounded by water. There's buildings coming down all around us. Really, it was unbelievable what was happening right in front of me.
That van we saw just 20 minutes ago, you saw the tires. Then all of a sudden the door disappeared. And now, look at it. It's already inside. It looks like one of the windows is down, so there's no question. Inside that van, it is absolutely covered with water right now.
It came up at least 10 to 15, maybe even 20 feet. All of a sudden, the generator goes, the power goes, and boom, this water's starting to come in the building.
Water now coming up on the dock, starting to head into the first floor of this building.
Everything and the gathering areas were all downstairs. So I'm talking about medicine, food. This is where our vets were having breakfast. There's about 20 Navy guys and gals there with us, and we were all scrambling to get everybody up to the 2nd floor. It was not about the TV anymore. It was about helping. There's no other option. It's put down what you're doing and help our vets. we are in the first floor of the Armed Forces retirement home, and this is unreal. I mean, we have water coming in this. Never, ever thought it would get this high. I wondered why that water came in at 27 feet. And the problem is the building wasn't at 27 feet. It was at 20 feet. These are guys that have lost body parts and sacrificed, you know, their lives for us, for our country. And so you're talking about some of these vets that were invalids. So they're in these mechanical wheelchairs. And if you've ever tried to pick one of those up and then move it up steps where you've lost air conditioning on one of those plastic floors, that it becomes all wet and slippery, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. We just kept going. You know, again, I can't tell you. I mean, weather has always humbled me all my life, and this is just another example. For 8 to 12 hours, that water was sloshing around on the first floor of this building.
The water kept rising and it kept rising. Equipment is just basically floating all around us in the kitchen, and we're scared. The kids are crying. We don't know what to do.
The phone rang, and it's the ladies in the cafeteria. They need to be rescued. So I grabbed 2 volunteers.
I remember seeing, Brother Ronald over on the phone. He kind of came to us kind of quick and said, there's some people that need some help. Are you willing to go? And we're like, well, yeah, absolutely.
Stanislaus is designed in such a way that we have a series of elevated walkways. And if you looked at the path to get to the cafeteria, some of those walkways were underwater. As we made our way to the cafeteria, all we saw were things floating, pieces of roofs, automobiles from campus that we had parked underneath were now floating out in the backyard. So it was a pretty harrowing moment.
I see the brothers coming. They started yelling to the door like, push with everything you got, push with everything while we pull. And we forced the door open.
When we came in, there were people on the tables. There was a lot of hysteria. There was a lot of emotions.
All the windows in the building had been blown out. All the water and the waves were inside the building, and it was pretty disastrous.
Brother Hingle and the rest of the crew came in, and they said, we're gonna get you out of here.
We just knew we had to get out the building as quickly as we could, because I had no idea how much longer the building was gonna be standing or would stay there.
When the patrol car crashed through the doors, I was already standing on a bookshelf, because it's one of those things like in a movie, you could see it happening. How quickly the water was coming in, the very large waves that were rolling on top with the storm surge. The survival rate was probably not in my favor. A couple of the guys panicked, began firing on the opposite facing glass doors, trying to break the doors. At the time, Pass Christian Police Department had issued Glock 21s, which are 45 caliber handguns. These rounds were smacking those windows and bouncing off due to the reinforced glass. We couldn't even bust the windows to get out of the building. Chief told everybody to quit shooting. You grabbed a chair and began beating on the push bar on the glass door and try to get it open. I was the last one to exit the library. I had actually had to push myself up under the water to get through the doorway and pop up on the other side. When I did, something debris, some debris underneath the water grabbed my foot and my ankle got stuck. My boot got stuck on something underneath the water, and Lally had actually pulled me up and got me my head back above the water, and we climbed up onto the roof. Give you an idea of how deep the water was at that point. We could reach up with both arms and grab the roof of the building and pull ourselves up onto it. Imagine being on the roof of this library for several hours in 135, 145 mile per hour winds with that rain nonstop. It felt like somebody had a sandblaster and was just hitting my bare skin with it. And the only thing I kept thinking was, God, please make it stop raining. That's all I want, either the rain or the wind to stop, one or the other, because both of them were absolutely killing me.
So after we made it out of the cafeteria, we had to make our way over these series of elevated walkways, and then we had to go across a breezeway, very short breezeway, I'd say about a quarter of a block long.
They kept telling us we have to go across the walkway to get to the storm shelter. And I never forget, the walkway looked like it was 20 miles long.
You know, we're hovering above the water. You can look down almost into a ravine, and you just see a constant flow of water.
Water is up to the breezeway, so it's cars, it's trucks, it's dumpsters, it's all kind of like trees and debris. So even if you could swim, falling in there, you stood a good chance of getting crushed by something.
I got about halfway across, and I kept feeling my body going back. The wind, it was moving us like we were nothing.
And it's like blowing her backwards, and like right before she hit the rail, she cries out, I think I'm gonna go over.
Sam, I'm gonna go over. He said, bull. And he jumped out there in the middle, and he grabbed me, and he slung me through the door, and then he just started slinging us all through the door.
With everything I had, I just tried to throw her, and the brother grabbed her and pulled her in.
Divine intervention, my husband, and those brothers saved our life.
That seemed like an eternity being up there on that roof. At one point, we walked out over the top of the roof and just looked out over the city, and you couldn't see anything but rooftops. That was it, water and rooftops. Once the water went down, we lowered a guy down to the ground where he was able to go inside of the library and find a large ladder to help everybody else get down. We have no cars, we have no help, there's nobody there. We started walking down Scenic Drive, and there was homes that were right there directly to the east of the library that were gone. It's almost like somebody took their hand and just wiped buildings completely away.
(1:30, 2 o'clock that afternoon, after the eye had passed and all the water had started going back out, I walked to the back of the station just to take a breath for myself. And I was sitting there, and I looked on top of the hood of one of the cars, and there was a green dog. I turned and looked at the guys and said, guys, y'all gonna think I'm crazy, but there's a green dog back here. The East End was a big fishing community. They had these big tubs of green, what they call copper tox, and they dipped the nets in this green copper tox. Well, obviously this stuff had floated up on the water and coated this dog because he was solid green. We had one of our guys who said, look, we can't leave this dog out there. Of course, limbs flying by and everything else. He said, I'll go get the dog. He finally got to the dog, and as he tried to grab the dog off the car, the dog started growling and barking at him. And of course, he said, I'm done. And he turned around, he came back, and that's where the dog stayed for about the next 3 hours. When we were able to actually get out and walk, we went out there and grabbed a hold of him, and he was fine at that point. We actually cleaned him and got some of the green off, but he stayed green for probably 3 weeks after that.
After the storm surge receded, I walked down the stairwell, I came out, and I was for the first time able to go back outside. I looked to my left, I looked to my right, concrete slabs. I'm walking around the damage, and it was this weird sensation. I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt guilty for being there almost. My family and friends they assured me, they said, no, it's good you did what you did, because people need to know how bad it looks so they don't find out for themselves.
It is 2:45 in the afternoon. Winds are still howling now, and you can see the destruction that Katrina has caused here.
Once we got outside, it was like walking onto a movie set, because it was very hard to believe. There isn't an inch, not an inch of the Mississippi coast that was left unchanged by Katrina. And you wondered, how many people lost their lives? How many people stayed? And for me personally, it is the first time I had ever smelled death. It is the first time I've ever seen death. And the horror of seeing what that hurricane did and how it forever changed the Mississippi coast will always be in my mind, always.